rest of the season. Forster was without a club after being sacked by Rochdale, where he joined from Whitehaven after leaving his role as head coach at the end of last season.
Yeah, he can't seem to stay away, can he?
No, it makes sense for the club. They obviously had quite a few injuries in their pack recently, and for him to just get back and playing, and he was one of the best players, I think, in the division last year. So getting back to that makes sense.
Yep. Rangi Chase is back in Rugby League after signing with League One club Doncaster. The controversial halfback, which could be his middle name, has joined the Dons on a deal until the end of the season and will be available for selection once he completes the drugs ban, which ends in July. The former England international and Man of Steel winner, Chase was suspended for 2 years in 2017 after testing positive for cocaine.
Lovely. Tom Andrews has got in touch with this one, of course.
Yeah.
Saying, believe everyone deserves a second or 16th chance. Don't think he's Super League class anymore, but will go well for Leeds in the Championship next year.
Newcastle Thunder have signed former NRL forward Joel Edwards for the remainder of 2019. The 30-year-old back row has played over 100 games in the NRL, with spells with the Raiders, Knights and the Tigers. He was part of the York City Knights team that earned promotion in 2018 from League One.
Okay, and some news that also broke today. Cooper Cronk has announced his intention to retire at the end of the 2019 season and bring to the end one of the finest careers in Rugby League history. Cronk has played in the NRL for 16 years, amassing 357 NRL games, 38 tests for Australia and 22 Origin appearances. The halfback has won 4 grand finals and was part of the infamous Big Three of Cameron Smith, Billy Slater and Cronk that dominated the Origin, International and NRL scenes. Really one of the generational players moving on.
Yeah, you can really tell, how it took him a little while to settle in at the Roosters, but after probably half a dozen games, he was basically running that team and really contributing to them.
And the whole thing in the grand final with playing completely busted, but still effectively playing as that on-field coach was just fantastic.
Yeah, no, you've got to see his future is possibly in coaching, you would say, because he certainly has that kind of mentality. You would argue.
Yeah, definitely, and I'd expect he'd be involved in the Origin setup before long.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Well, the Queensland might need him with the way that they're going at the moment. But yeah, you can't argue with the guy's record. He certainly has done everything that you could possibly imagine in the game. And finally, Rugby League has been officially recognised by the Norwegian government. 10 years after matches were first played there, the sport was voted in as an activity according to the rules of the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sports at an extraordinary general meeting of the Norwegian Rugby Federation. The decision caps a 5-year campaign by Rugby League Norge, which is likely to be formally recognised as a governing body before the end of the year. A league will have legal status parallel to other sports administered by their committee.
There we go. Congratulations to them, and they marked it by playing the international against Greece at the weekend. And I believe the Norwegian ambassador even made an appearance at the game, so I'm told. So it does have official status there. And it was one of the great things about that game was to see the Greek community and Norwegians who had no affinity to rugby league, never been to a rugby league game, but came along because it was their country playing and wanted to support them. Yeah,
as you say, it's one of those things that, particularly obviously that this is a function in London that it works very well in terms of expat communities, and that kind of engagement is really helpful. It makes it makes the games an occasion as much as anything else. So yeah, it's fantastic news.
Yep, so that is all the news for this week. Don't forget, if you've got any views on any news stories that break throughout the week, then get on over to the Google form where you can find that, which be up on Twitter for at different points during the week. So just get your views in there and then we'll read them out on next week's pod. And now time for these match reviews from Super League Round 15. So time for the Super League match reviews for Super League round 15, where we saw an average attendance of 11,785. It includes the all-time record, which is quite interesting. That's only the average, but includes a very low crowd at London, which we'll
I was going to say, yeah, it was a bit of a yin and yang, wasn't it? That one. It's amazing because I did expect that average to be higher, but when you add the two attendances together, it's only like 33,000, isn't it? So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's staggering. I had to check my maths twice on that one. So we started off on Thursday night at the brand new, fully shined up Emerald Headingley Stadium, except they haven't finished the dressing rooms yet.
All right, okay.
That's why they're all queuing around the back of the side.
It didn't look great, that I must say.
Where it finished, Leeds 8, Castleford Tigers 30, having been 2-12 at half time, in front of 13,286, and one of those was Mr. Chris Kendall, who was refereeing. So starting with the stats on this, Paul Shane for the winning, Paul McShane, I don't know why he's lost his muck, he's become un-Scottish in the last 5 minutes, for Cass, who got 1 try assist, 56 tackles. Jesse Seni Lefeo, who got 2 tries, one slightly interesting one which we'll probably come on to, and made 106 metres. Greg Eden, who scored a try assist and ran for 166 metres, making 5 tackle busts with 2 clean breaks. And Chase Blair, who ran for 146 metres and broke through 5 tackles of his own. For the losing Leeds side, Cameron Smith made 53 tackles, ran for 100 metres and made 10 of those tackles from marker. Brad Singleton also made 10 marker tackles as part of his 43 tackles and made 3 offloads. Trent Merrin made 40 tackles and ran for 117 metres, so he went both ways. And Ash Handley ran for 136 metres. So we had lots of fan views on this one, being a Thursday night TV game.
We did, yeah. So Paul O'Brien got in touch and said, Castleford just too good for Leeds. Paul will be happy with the win, but where do Leeds go from here? He didn't look that happy, I have to say, but he never does.
They'll be going, I don't think he's capable of looking happy, as he's one of those people. But then if you were next to Ryan Sheridan every week, then you've got to look vaguely neutral. Because otherwise it would just look a bit weird, wouldn't it? If you two of you looking that happy all the time. In terms of where they go from here, it's Anfield for Magic Weekend. Tom Andrews got in touch, and he said, Alan has set the review challenge. I'll give it a go. We'll see how this one pans out as we go through the games this evening. Leeds are just bloody awful. Not too much more to say other than that. Thought that Matautia was man of the match. I was mad Watkins, who looks a shadow of himself, was hard done to, getting sin-binned. Big game for Leeds at Magic next weekend. Yes, it is. Battle of the basement there against London. Yeah,
it got bigger after Saturday's results, didn't it? We'll talk about the sin bin in a minute. So the next fan view is from a new listener. I've never heard of this guy before. A guy called Mark Hill.
Is he unwell?
I don't know, but thanks for getting in touch. We always like to hear from new listeners. So Mark says, Cass went out there to play and were pretty crisp in the first half. Solid second half. Handley and Newman deserve credit for Leeds, but as a team, they still have no cohesion. Crap load of errors. Kendall was right on his big calls. Too easy a win for a Cass side that got over their excuses by admitting they were shit last week. Finally, and they've got over it now.
Fair enough. Please do keep your fan views coming in, Mark.
Yeah, keep in touch, Mark.
Them.
Yeah.
John Hamilton said, not too much to cheer about. Stadium looks nice and there are a couple of okay individual performances. Sutcliffe is underrated. There, I said it. Cass were definitely less terrible and looked more likely to score throughout the match, so well done to them. The best thing about this game is that I can be in a shit mood at work tomorrow, then hopefully it won't ruin my whole weekend.
Yeah, you can get over the Thursday nighters, can't you?
Yeah, you can forget about them ever happening.
Forget them, yeah. Rich Wilkinson says, at the point where Richard fucking Agar is sat in a Leeds hoodie giving a press conference as a Leeds coach, the club is so fucked. For your information, I have not listened to him speak as the coach. A still image was enough to drive me to a total rage. This is so fucked. What the fuck is Gary doing? Does Cindy speak so slow due to too many micro concussions? I'm angry at my own resentment for the guy I respect so much. Fucking shambles. I don't think Rich has calmed down from Thursday yet.
No, I think he's still in that world of pain. Although I have to say, I'd much rather listen to a Richard Agar press conference than Kevin Sinfield. I don't know what it is, and I respect every achievement he had as a player, but I think he could be used as some sort of helps to get to sleep tapes, because it's just a success. It's partly the voice and the intonation, but it's also partly just the series of management cliches strung together.
Yeah, he's like an automaton, isn't he? It's quite extraordinary. It's a bit Michael Owen-esque, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's
in that kind of.
Yeah, it probably is that thing of when you've been a sportsman from so young and you've had so much success, you just naturally slip into that mode.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paul Chamberlain got in touch to say, good to see Watkins concentrating on his new wrestling career, as his time as a professional league player is about up. However, whilst the body slam was decent and the beef with the ref top notch, he should have followed up with a Hogan leg drop and then the people's elbow. Other than that, great to see an expensive, half-empty newsstand being entertained by the quality of Myler and Merrin. Halcyon days.
I like that one. Thanks, Paul. Josh says, I don't even know what we're going to do now. There's just no defence and very little in attack, getting to the line and having no clue what to do. Casted well and targeted the right man, Callum, who couldn't stop a 5-year-old. Effort from Leeds was zero, like when they got a 7-tackle set. Took like 5 minutes before we tapped to get the play going, and players aimlessly wandered around. Oh God, there's 3 from Josh. I'll just run through these. I wonder if this is like a kind of a descent into madness. I don't know, but anyway, we'll keep going. Last week there was a big deal about weather, and there was a knock-on before a try. But I'm sure the first try by Cass didn't even get grounded, which was not the deciding factor of the loss. Leeds not being able to hold the ball or make tackles was the big problem. The youngsters have good promise like Newman and McLennan, but the big men need to step up. And finally, from Josh says, now locked into a must-win game at Magic against London, and I think London have a chance if we don't get a grip.
Yeah, well, I think with London's enterprising play that they showed this weekend, and they've shown throughout the season, really their attacking play against. I was going to say the Leeds defence, but that implies there is one. the Leeds effort. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Leeds warm bodies.
The 13 players from Leeds. It's going to be. I mean, you've probably got to back London, I think, because.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about my tips before we started recording, but yeah, I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, it's been a long time since you've had to give that some serious thought. A contest between those two teams about who'd come out on top. But yeah, it's worrying. What were your memories of this game, seeing as it was so long ago?
The first one was just certainly in the first half, Cass just getting out of their own 20 far too easily. They were just being allowed to walk the ball out with no real resistance. There was nothing from Leeds that was going to trap them in that 20 and make it hard for them to get out. They weren't going to put any danger on, and so all Cass had to do is just take it up, one out, walk it up, and they were breaking through quite comfortably with no real resistance. And I think then moving off the back of that and the field position they were able to gain led to that Jesse Senni-Lefeo try. I mean, it was a stupid penalty from Richie Meyer, but then really the fact that he had so much time to put it down was again on Leeds, and just the poor wrestle that they were showing.
This was a thing. No, exactly, because you'll get the referee calling held if the player is clearly smothered, and he wasn't. So he had the chance to put it down. He's already over the line, so it can't be a double movement, and he just put it down. So, and to be fair, that was his half separated shoulder, so you got to give him a little bit of leeway. But no, to me that was a try. I have no